Good morning and welcome. My name is James Moser. I'm your worship associate for this morning. We welcome you to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. And I welcome you who are online joining us, as well as those of you who are here in the sanctuary, in the room, as we gather as a faith community. At First U, we welcome a diversity of people, no matter your background, no matter whom you love. And we urge you, especially newcomers, to connect with our website and or our email newsletter, which is called e-news, for which you can connect on our website. And all are invited for will be a brief time of coffee hour today in the parish hall. There is a live stream program that many of you have pre-registered for, and it will go ahead. Unfortunately, it will be only for those who have pre-registered because it is nearly overbooked. So please accept our apologies that we don't have a bigger room. And it's a testimony, I think, to the success that live stream program has had in this congregation over the last few years, that we reach a point of being overbooked. That's the good side. One of the guiding lights of our faith community is Soul Matters, another resource of a universalist, a Unitarian Universalist trove of monthly resources that are used by many in our congregation in various ways. Our March Soul Matters theme is trust. So you'll be hearing about that today. Let's celebrate that trust in welcoming one another first by turning to our camera and waving to those at home who join us, because we remember them, think of them, and include them in our presence. Now I'll invite you to rise and greet those around you with a warm First Jew greeting. I always feel like I have to cut that short, you know? Carry that warm feeling silently now. We are now to prepare our minds and hearts in a spirit of trust of our gathering as our children launch us into our service today.
That was great. So I'm the Reverend Larry Pierce. Some of you already know that. I'm the minister here at the First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. So glad you could join us on this Sunday. And in this Sunday, if you did get the insert as you walked in the door, you'll notice that we're welcoming not just 5, but 6 new members this morning. Some of them are going to appear as angelic beings because they're sick. So we're going to maybe have just 3 that are here. I think I've got that right. Okay, 3 or 2. If you sprung forward this morning, which it looks like you did, great. I don't know how that 1 hour less of sleep is going to influence you today, but don't let it impact your generosity. If some people come in late and they think the closing hymn is the opening hymn, just say to them, "So glad you could join us today." Let's practice. Glad you could join us today. Wonderful. Okay, so for our call to worship, I'm sharing these words by Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joy, and your passion. Bring your loving, and your courage, and your conviction. Bring your need for healing, and your power to heal. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it right here in this room.
Our chalice lighter today is Michael. As Michael lights our flame, if you have a chalice at home, you're invited to join us in lighting your flame as I read these words. The flame we light in our chalice today has been handed to us by our ancestors and predecessors, who, even before knowing who we are, trusted us with the future of our ministry. We honor the tradition of their work, even as we are inspired to continue it. Now, as you are able, please rise as we sing hymn number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open, and then remain standing for our affirmation following the hymn. In affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action. Now, before you sit down, listen to those active verbs that you just recited. Nourishes, fights, transforms.
Today, I am sharing a wisdom tale from China called The Empty Pot. Long ago, there lived a wise old emperor. She loved children, but had none of her own. The emperor decided to choose one of the children who lived in the town, in the village, to be the next emperor. The emperor also loved gardening and caring for plants, so no one was surprised by the test she offered the children of the village. The emperor called all the children to her palace and said, "The time has come for me to choose the next emperor. I will give each of you a seed. Come back in 1 year. When I see what you have grown from your seed, I will choose the next emperor." Excitement buzzed throughout the crowd as seeds were handed out. Among those who received a seed was a young boy named Chen, known throughout the village for his green thumb. With great excitement, Chen planted his seed in a pot filled with rich soil. He watered it and made sure it got plenty of sunlight. Weeks passed, but nothing sprouted from Chen's pot. Around the village, Chen heard tales of other children's pots overflowing with vibrant flowers. Embarrassed, he tried changing the soil and adjusting the amount of water and light, but nothing worked. A year passed, and Chen's pot was still empty. Finally, the day came to present the pots to the emperor. Holding his pot, Chen was very nervous. All around him, children whispered and giggled, showing off their pots with beautiful and stunning flowers of all colors. Chen felt tears in his eyes. With a heavy heart, he walked into the palace, and when his turn came, he bowed and presented his empty pot. The emperor's brows raised in surprise. "Why is your pot empty?" she asked. Chen swallowed hard and answered, "I planted the seed you gave me, and I tended it every day, but it never sprouted." The emperor nodded, then turned to address the crowd. "I have made my decision," she declared. "The new emperor is Chen." A gasp went through the crowd. Chen was astonished. But my pot is empty," he stammered. The emperor smiled and said, "I gave everyone a boiled seed. It could not grow. All of you, except Chen, have brought me pots with flowers. If you planted the seeds I gave you, they would not have grown." Chen was the only one honest enough to present me with an empty pot. The emperor continued, "A great leader must have courage, integrity, and honesty." Chen Chen demonstrated these qualities by being truthful despite the temptation to pretend otherwise. Chen became emperor and ruled wisely. He always kept the empty pot on his desk, reminding him and his advisors that honesty and integrity should be at the heart of all their actions. In the weeks and days ahead, may this story help all of us to have the courage to tell the truth and do what is right and good.
So now we want to welcome our new members. So this morning, we're particularly excited about officially welcoming our newest members of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. Joining me in this official welcoming is Catherine Williamson, our Director of Children and Youth Religious Exploration, Vivian Gray, who was one of our co-presidents, and Marilyn Height, who is part of our membership team. Marilyn will momentarily be calling the names of our new members. When she does so, please come forward if you happen to be here. If you're watching us online, we're watching you as well. Those of you who are in the sanctuary have received an insert, hopefully, when you came in, that tells you briefly about each of our new members. In the days ahead, please take the time to connect with our new members and to find ways to connect them to the life, to the programs, and to the ministries of this congregation. Marilyn, from our membership and engagement team, will now read the names while each person steps forward and stands in the front of the dais, just like this, and so forth. So let me say a little something first, Marilyn, and you can catch your breath. So we want to honor the roots of this congregation, founded in 1866 by an intrepid group of people who wanted to bring the message of a liberal approach to Christianity and a Unitarian congregation to this area. But over the years, the perspectives of this congregation have broadened into a congregation that draws from many sources, many religions, literary, artistic, and scientific perspectives. Yet we are connected to the courage and the vision of our ancestors and all of the lay people and clergy who have served us over the years. May we endeavor to embody our guiding Unitarian Universalist principles into practices that transform our lives and our society.
Good morning, everybody.
Marilyn, if you could use the mic.
One should always look at the script before they decide when their turn is. I have the honor this morning of introducing 6 names of individuals. Unfortunately, some of them have the flu, and so they decided to stay home. I have a thank you from the choir for staying home because they have the flu. Chris Kylick and Brianna DeLong Kylick are home with the flu. They send their best regards. Elise Andriacola, Victoria Swiaki, known as Tori, so I actually goofed on her name tag, which will be coming soon. Rebecca Rodriguez, whose last name somehow disappeared in the program. I apologize to Rebecca, but her 4 kids are with the flu, so they have decided to stay home. And Rebecca would probably welcome get well cards for her.
So you can
And Melissa King,
Well, if they're watching
who I know is here
online.
because I saw her as she came in. And I'm going to hand each of our new members a chalice pin. One for you, one for you, and one for you, and I will get out of the way.
Okay. Yes, please use the microphone when you speak. Okay? And please advance the slide. Welcome to each of you. Not that fast. Welcome to each of you. Today we invite you into this beloved community to enrich us with your experiences, your perspectives, and your gifts. By your presence in this congregation, each of you adds to the beauty and the strength of what First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is and what this church will become. By your presence, so I welcome you. We're having a little trouble with our slides. Okay, go ahead.
I want to acknowledge those among our new members who are also parents, who as a family are joining our congregation. So welcome to Rebecca and the newer children. We would like to support you in your role as the resident religious educator in your home. May you, your children, and youth find a home here to grow your souls and deepen your connection to our faith community.
So may the members of the First Unitarian Church now stand as you are willing or able, and join by offering the welcoming words you will find on the screen. Okay. We welcome you as we once welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas and your visions, in times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out encourage to us, but also when you need us, reach out to you. We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
And now I invite the congregation to please join in singing hymn number 402, From You I Receive. If the children will please meet me at the door. Thank you.
Let us join now in a time of prayerful meditation. As we begin, I want to light a candle in memory of Eleanor Morrow, a member of our congregation who passed away very recently. She was an intrepid person, wasn't she? There we go. May the light of this candle and its warmth remind us of the light and the warmth that was Eleanor. We surround her family with care and concern during this time of loss, and some of you may know that she was the mother-in-law of Paul Boothby, who was a minister, associate minister here. So let's pause, and those of you who knew her can remember her in this moment, and all of us can radiate love and care to her family and loved ones. May her life and the memory of her life continue to be a blessing. Amen. So our prayer this morning comes from a selection written by Margaret Wheatley. It's a wondrous thing to be able to restore sanity. It's a wondrous thing to awaken our human spirits. It's a wondrous thing to know all humans can be generous, creative, and kind. It's a wondrous thing to partner with life and with spirit. It's a wondrous thing to experience uncertainty as inviting rather than frightening. It's a wondrous thing to create islands of sanity, places of possibility and refuge, where the human spirit can thrive. Restoring sanity is a joyful work. May we become intimate with this joy. Let's join now in a time of shared silence, following which we'll hear the concerns and joys that you have on your heart. What are some of the concerns that are your particular burden today? Concern about yourself, those you love, or our world? If you could speak it briefly in this room or write it in the chat, we will hold these concerns alongside you. So, what are your concerns? Take this side of the room first. I'm going to get to this side. Thanks for that little nudge, Max. I appreciate that. And I'm looking for David. David, I want to acknowledge that your father's memorial service will be on Saturday. Is that right? Yeah. So we hold you with love and care. So thank you, Max. Anyone else in this area? Yeah. Any other concerns in this area? Here. Mm-hmm. And Suzanne Perry's memorial service is this Saturday as well. So let's, maybe with your hands like this, feel the weight of these concerns and share the weight and the burden alongside of those who express them, and to recognize that we hold each other. We love each other. We offer care to one another. So may it be. What about joys? Let's start over here. Is there a joy that, in spite of everything else, is still something that you would like to share today? New chapters. Warmer weather. Oh, nice. Speak it up a little. Say that again. Demonstrating that so beautifully. I love that. Anyone else? Grandchildren. Okay, other joys. Nice. I have a joy that Rabbi Peter Grumbacher is joining us today for the program. Any other joys? Yeah.
Meeting John Bon Jovi last night and getting his signature.
Anybody top that? She's still dancing and singing. Notice that. Any other joys? Thank you. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Thanks for holding that up for us, Renee. Anyone else? So may all the names that were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day. Now we'll have our musical meditation. So I've asked a few people to pass these baskets around. It's something you're going to take rather than put something in. Since the children are now out of the room mostly, I think, we're bringing the toys out. And we'll use these as an illustration later on in the sermon. So just take one and pass the basket on to others as well. And let's not forget the choir. They love to share toys. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. So on this day, March 9th, 60 years ago in 1965, the Reverend James Reeb, who was a social worker, a Unitarian Universalist minister, a father of four, a white man, was severely beaten by a group of white men in Selma, Alabama. Reeb had traveled to Selma along with many others from around the country to participate in a march for civil rights and voting rights. He felt called to respond to the events of Bloody Sunday just a few days before, where John Lewis and several other marchers were brutally and senselessly attacked as they attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma to begin the 55-mile march to Montgomery. He chose to abide with the aftermath of those events as people from around the country gathered in Selma to prepare to march again. Reeb was attacked while walking with his Unitarian Universalist colleagues, Reverend Carl Olson and Orloff Miller, while leaving an integrated restaurant. It is said that Reeb's death, along with the earlier killing of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a black hospital worker, drew national attention to the violence against civil rights activists and contributed to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. When speaking at James Reeb's memorial service on March 15th, 1965, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Naturally, we are compelled to ask the question, who killed James Reeb? There's another haunting, poignant, desperate question we are forced to ask this afternoon. He continued, what killed James Reeb? King argued that when we move from the who to the what, the blame is wide and the responsibility grows. James Reeb was murdered by indifference of every minister of the gospel who has remained silent behind the safe security of stained glass windows, King said. He was murdered by irrelevancy of a church that will stand amid social evil and serve as a tail light rather than a headlight, an echo rather than a voice. He was murdered by the irresponsibility of every politician who has moved down the path of demagoguery, who has fed his constituents the stale bread of hatred and the spoiled meat of racism. He was murdered by the timidity of a federal government that can spend millions of dollars a day to keep troops in South Vietnam, yet cannot protect the lives of its own citizens. Today, my friends, at a time when democracy is teetering on the edge in this country, in a time when the firing and rehiring, the slashing and the rehashing of federal budgets and agencies is causing havoc in the lives of dedicated federal workers and their families, including a few members of this congregation who are here with us today, in a time when these antics are putting fear and deep uncertainty in the hearts of the elderly, the vulnerable families and immigrants, in a time when men in suits in an Oval Office can abandon our promises to those who once trusted us and relied upon us. My list could go on. You're supposed to say, "You can stop there, Reverend." My list could go on. It is time. It is time. It is time to confront the what and not just who has unleashed this cruelty, this confusion, this anxiety, this overwhelm that is delivered to us each day over the last several weeks. It is the indifference, the irrelevancy, the irresponsibility, and the timidity that have brought this mess about and sustains it. My friends, it's time for us to confront directly these erosions of the human spirit, these diversions from our human responsibility, and to restore sanity to our country and to our lives. Can I get an amen? It is time. We honor the death of Reverend James Reeb, who dared to take a stand 60 years ago against the brutal attacks and dehumanization of fellow human beings of color. When we dare to ask ourselves the same question that Florence Reese asked after her home was invaded by mine owners in Harlan County, Kentucky, in 1934, as they searched for her union organizing husband, who fortunately had fled before they got there. She could have easily, Florence could have easily curled up in despair. She could have easily given up hope. She could have easily relinquished the fight. But instead, Florence Reese, the social activist, the poet, scribbled these words on a wall calendar in her kitchen right after the attack, and later put it to music in a familiar tune. The song was later made popular by Pete Seeger and included these lyrics. Perhaps you know it. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? You go to Harlan County. There is no neutral there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. when we too might find ways to distance ourselves from the noise and the onslaught of chaos and cruelty that has been unleashed in this country, in this world, through the strike of a scripto pen on an executive order or the haphazard, uninformed, unskillful waving of a metaphorical chainsaw in our country's agreed upon budget. So there I go again. We've heard enough, right, Reverend? We recognize that the care for others and the agencies that care for others is an important thing for us to watch and to attend to and proclaim and call out, right? And the echo we must hear ourselves is, whose side are we on? The echo we must also hear is, there is no neutral here. While the pilot light of democracy may still seem available in this country, my friends, may we connect to a faith community with one that can be our grounding. This grounding value, I meant to say, this inherent worthiness and dignity of every human being, which we affirm and promote and declare and practice among us. This value echoes to us as Unitarian Universalists from the timeless teachings of religious teachers and mystics and prophets and social reformers. We have been entrusted with the upholding of that dignity and the safeguarding of the rights of all, with the opportunity to determine their destiny. This is not a time to fall into a slumber when we need to be more and more awake. This is not a time to be lured towards irresponsibility because we imagine that what is going on is irrelevant because we will not personally be impacted. This is not a time to slink away towards indifference. We need to ask ourselves, which side are we on? We need to realize that there is no neutral here. We cannot keep our congregation's sign on 202 illuminated. We should not dare light a chalice flame in this place. We should not join the procession of Unitarians and Universalists who have preceded us on the path towards justice if we have chosen, even inadvertently, the side of indifference. Do you hear what I'm saying here? It was Elie Wiesel who once spoke of the luring power of indifference in the conditions that led to and surrounded the atrocity of the Holocaust. He delivered these lines in 1999 in a speech entitled, "The Power of Indifference." He spoke, he said, "Of course, indifference can be tempting. More than that, seductive. It's so much easier to look away from victims. It's so much easier to avoid such rude interruptions to our work, our dreams, and our hopes. It is, after all, awkward and troublesome to be involved in another person's pain and despair. Yet, for the person who is indifferent, his or her neighbor are of no consequence, and therefore their lives are meaningless. Their hidden or even visible anguish is of no interest. Indifference reduces the other to an abstraction." If love is the center of all that we do as a congregation, if aligning ourselves with the inherent worthiness and dignity of every human being is our calling, indifference cannot be our response. Sure, none of us would claim to be indifferent, for we are outraged, right? For we tweet, right? We post, we scroll our news feeds and complain about what's going on, right? Just say yes. None of us would claim to be indifferent. since we are informed and we voted the right way. Yet, my friends, we must also learn to resist before what we have been experiencing persists in its attempt to numb us and nullify our moral sensitivity towards the most vulnerable, before all that we care for the common good. Our care for the common good erodes over time. While our eyes are still open and our hearts are still feeling, we must find ways to restore sanity. Let's avoid the addiction to what Margaret Wheatley calls hopeism. Say that word, it'll be on the exam. Hopeism. We don't have to wait until our reservoir of hope is replenished before we can act on what it is that we know already. Václav Havel, in confronting the tyranny of his time in what is today the Czech Republic, fashioned an understanding of hope that can serve us even now. Havel wrote, "The kind of hope I often think about, I understand above all as a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope within us or we don't. It's a dimension of the soul. It's not essentially dependent on some particular observation of the world or an estimate of the situation. Hope is not prognostication. It is an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that is immediately experienced, and it is anchored somewhere beyond the horizon. Hope, in this deep and powerful sense, is not the same as joy that things are going well, or the willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously headed for early success. But rather, hope is an ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. I'll repeat that. Hope is an ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. Havel reminds us that it's not foretelling that it will turn out and then investing our energies. We should not try to assess whether the glass is half empty or half full. Instead, as Margaret Wheatley says, we should be able to say, oh, there's water here. Who needs it? And how can I get it to them? In other words, if we are to really be of use and to make our contribution to what is actually needed, we need to be in the present moment and constantly asking, am I the one to do this? In other words, we need to keep asking, what is mine to do? What is my contribution? Margaret Wheatley offers this guidance in her latest book, Restoring Sanity, that inspired some of my thoughts today. She says, we can't skip over the terrors of current and future reality and blithely rely on hope to direct us to meaningful work. We must encounter the truth of this world and let it change us. We must become familiar with despair and depression, not as a destination, but as a recurring emotions on this journey. And we must never lose sight of our true destination, discovering our path of contribution. So I took that paragraph of hers and I decided to use it as a guidance for some practices for us. She says, first, we must face the reality of what is emerging around us in the circumstances of our time. It all begins with recognizing, as Wheatley says, we can't skip over the terrors of the current or the future reality. We may need to abide with them. this is where you could take your finger trap out. Did you get one, James? Could someone make sure James gets one? Thank you, Jim. Everyone gets to play. Let this finger trap represent the struggles and the challenges that we encounter in this life and in our country right now. Linda wants one as well. Could you get one to her? She's over here. Everyone wants the toys. Take a moment and think about the challenges that you have been pulling away from, either in your personal life or in our country right now. And now put your fingers in the finger trap and notice what happens when you pull away from, when you try to withdraw, when you try to slip away from those challenges. What happens? You get trapped. Realize what happens when we avoid what's right before us. The more we attempt to avoid and withdraw from the circumstances, the more we become entangled and trapped. Now, note that the metaphor of the finger trap also teaches us that when we stop avoiding, when we accept the circumstances, no matter how disheartening they may be, similar to gently pushing our fingers towards each other, when we abide just a little longer with what is, what happens? The trap loosens a little. Acceptance doesn't mean that we approve or like everything that's happening, but rather that we make room for all of the experiences, pleasant or unpleasant, and we stop struggling against them. Instead, we move towards them, and it loosens. Keep your fingers in the trap just a little longer. Having accepted what is, having moved toward it rather than try to avoid it in some blithe attempt to be hopeful or optimistic, we must become familiar with whatever emotions arise as we are with the pain and the terrors and the uncertainties of our time, to abide with them rather than try to escape from them. We have to hold ourselves there, experience them. By creating islands of sanity, we're creating places of relationship where we can name what is. We can allow ourselves to experience our emotions and our insights and be with those rather than try to escape or withdraw prematurely. You're probably wondering how to get released, right? So use your thumb and take one finger out at a time. I could have had a captive audience. It's so tempting for us to act prematurely, to do something, just anything, so that we don't have to stay in the discomfort, the powerlessness, the anxiety, and the despair too long. Yet if we can sit with it, take a contemplative and responsive stance, not a reactive or automatic one, we may discover that we are acting from a fuller place, a deeper place of understanding all the implications emotionally and so forth of what is. And here, once we've allowed ourselves to be with all that is and all the emotions that arise from it, we can begin to hold in our consciousness and in our wider heart a deeper kind of place from which to respond. Sometimes we try to act immediately or reactively as a way not to really be with what is, and therefore our response is not informed by the depths of our own experience. Do you sense what I'm saying here? So it's from that place that we can say, again, what is my contribution to make? How do I want to align my energy towards the values that I want to bring about in this world? So I invite you this week to play with this a little, to hold whatever it is that you're holding, a concern that you might have about our world or even your own life. And notice whatever it is that you might do to try to withdraw from or avoid it. And ask yourself instead to be with it just a little longer. You might have to breathe. I oftentimes find that when the anxiety gets high, I need to breathe a little deeper and hold it. And then gradually, more space is created, and I'm able to let go. So this is part one of a two-part sermon. So you've just gotten your homework for the week. Do this week, and next week we will focus primarily on what is it that you came up with about what is my contribution to make. Already in our congregation, we are doing things such as the writing letters of gratitude that is happening after the service. The Human Rights Task Force has invited us to make good trouble by writing letters to those places that are upholding democracy and diversity and inclusion and equity. We are gathering on the last Sunday of this month in a demonstration on 202 to let the world know what our values are and to make them explicit and write them on posters and stand witness and bear witness to those values. So that's Sunday, March 30th, immediately after the service. Those are our beginning actions, but let's take time as a community to deepen our understanding of what is. Hold the anxiety, hold the despair, and hold the depression, and know that none of us is holding it alone, but together, from those emotions, can come a deeper, broader consciousness of all that is, and a response that can really make a difference. That's my hope. So may it be.
Trust and confidence. We look for it. Let me tell you what I've found in the recent weeks. I bought a new set of tires. Within 2 weeks, one of them was leaking. My wife had a surgery date. 2 weeks before the surgery date, it was canceled. Bought a couple of bird feeders that were advertised to be squirrel-proof. Need I say more? Mimi and I were comfortably watching a favorite show the other night, and all of a sudden the power went out. And not the least, last week I got a fraud alert. Well, that's what the world will dish out. But I want to tell you, I'm in this congregation because when I walk through those doors and join this community of people, I have trust and confidence. Not that everything will always go right, but that we are one. That's why you're asked to give. As we say, to keep the lights on, not just for the light, to keep the doors open, not just so we can come in, to keep our staff fed. All for that trust and confidence that we live into when we're here together and then disperse to carry our mission out. And so, our ushers will soon be waiting upon you for your gifts of the day, and very soon there will be above my head on the screen the various ways in which you may make a donation to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, our home. The ushers will now come. While we extinguish the flame in our chalice here in the sanctuary, we invite those of you at home who have a chalice to join us in extinguishing it as we carry forward in our hearts the flame that doesn't cease, trusting those who will come after us with our mission and ministry, even before we know who they are. May they honor the tradition of our work, and may our work be worthy, even as we are inspired to continue it.
Great. Thank you, James. Thanks to the choir for the lovely music, for the instrumental playing, the piano, and for the direction of our music today. It's great to have you here. And we never, ever forget the AV team that are allowing others who aren't here to be with us. So when those doors are open, you'll see a hub of activity behind those doors. Door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. So one, of course, is that our annual stewardship focus continues this Sunday. It's good news to see that the First Unitarian Church is now at whatever percentage that thermometer is showing. So it means we've got that much more to go. So, Janet, are you the one that is going to be at the stewardship table today to receive your pledge and answer any questions about how many zeros you should add? We also have a reception of snacks and so forth over to the left around noon or so, and we also have the letter writing table, the letters of gratitude that I talked about. I might be forgetting something. At noon, we will start with our lunch. Please sit down if you've prepared to be here for lunch, and then our program on, what are we calling it? Laugh and Learn or Laugh and whatever. So, with Rabbi Peter Grimbacher. So our closing words are these. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. And any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely, says Clarissa Pincole Estes. And now let's join in our closing hymn, We Shall Be Known by the Company We Keep. Join in singing as soon as you're ready. Rise in body or spirit as we sing together.
Shall be known by the ones who sow and reap Thank you.